All right, Lions fans, let's talk some Lions. I want to continue this video from the last video that just cut off. I was talking about the Lions 2021 acquisitions and from the top management all the way down, and I was talking about Rod Wood and how the Lions won't win as long as he's part of the organization, and the reason why they won't win because the organization doesn't win theoretically. What I mean by that is that they have if you ever heard the statement, it takes money to make money. Well, it is equivalent to winning. It takes money to remain a winner. If you notice the Lions' history, they always get so far and then they will crumble it down when it comes to the point to investing into the product. However, with the amount that they have invested into up to that point, would have been enough to get the fans to come there for what, a good 10 to 20 years. When it comes to that next tier generation that's not really involved with the next that's not involved with that 10 and 20, they have to up the ante. In other words, they have to go to the drawing board, restructure it, reshuffle it to make it look as though like they want to do what, make it a winner, but actuality is not a winner. It becomes you only build it to a certain extent, get the fans to come in to buy in, or in other words, cover it up by bringing somebody something new to make it more alive, to make it present to be alive, like alive, like it's going to actually achieve the goal, which is to give the fans an actual winner. But if you look at the quantity over the quality type deal, you only build it to a certain degree. Let's say that, okay, when the Force took over, the Lions were actually winning. They were winners when they took over the team. They was champions nonetheless. Of course, the Super Bowl era having started. I think the Super Bowl era started not too much longer after they bought the team. And you notice it started to go in a different direction. It became less about quality, but more about quantity. So it became more about how do we save a dollar, but gain $2 back. It became that deal. And as long as the fans gets an entertainment product enough to get you to go after the bait, but not to actually grab the bait, it's a successful venue. So how do I add that up to where we are now? Well, right where the Lions is standing with the Matthew Stafford situation. A gentleman that been here for 13 years, and I don't know if it's 12 to 13 or it was 13 going on 14. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, I believe it's 13 years. And I don't know if he just played his 13 year or was going into his 13 year. I'm not sure, but you have a stat of 44 wins and 90 losses. How is that? How is that your highest paid asset? That's evident right there that you don't want to win. That's his stat line. Everybody else that's a part of that stat line that have won, that was a part of the losing of 44 and 9, they're not here. He's the only one. Maybe, the long snapper and Mulebach, but other than that, everybody else is gone. Why is he still here? Somebody said because he still can do his job. How is it considered still doing your job when you're not on the field for 16 games? How is you really doing your job when you don't control what you can control? How is it still doing your job? It's the person that appears to give you 100%, which he does, to give you 100% effort, but he doesn't give you 100% results. He give you 50% results, and that's for a town for a fan base that's been hoodwinked for so long. Of that, they want. What I mean by hoodwink is that you bought the idea that what was sold, that they want to win, but yet and still they leave you high and dry at the point of winning. Okay, let's say I'll give you 3 examples. Maybe 2. I'll give you 2. In 91, you 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl. 1 game from going to the Super Bowl. Why did you tear all that down? Because it costs money to make money, or it costs more money to actually to sustain a championship team or to win. Then some, you get some. Then number 2, you're 11-5 with this head coach. with a head coach. I said that way. You're 11-5, 9-7, 9-7, maybe 7-9. If you're winning, why do you tear it down and go actually the opposite way to hire someone who has no experience? That's from general manager and head coach. When they brought in Quinn and Patricia, which I was in favor of for this, and I would defend that, for when if I were to do another part to this, or maybe I do it in this one, I'm not sure. But we went away from what was actually a winning formula. Why? You're 11. When you brought him in here, he was 11-5, 9-7, 9-7, 7-9. Maybe because he cleaned up the mess of the previous one, and after he cleaned up the mess, you set it for somebody else who is more favorable. Okay, you brought in somebody who has no experience. However, they come from a winning organization, so you believe they're going to bring that winning attitude, or is enough to sell to the fans that, okay, you have a winning recipe with these two assets that's come from a winning organization, but yet still they have no personal experience of actually winning themselves on their own. They're set up to fail. So why do I harp on the Matthew Stafford deal? It's because, in fact, it's an incomplete job. If he's your franchise quarterback, he has been for over 13 years, how come you don't set him up to succeed? Because it would cost too much to set him up to succeed here. The reason why it would cost so much to succeed here versus going somewhere like Denver or Kansas City or Dallas. Why? Because they have a winning formula already set in motion. Okay, somebody said like Andy Reid just came over there to Kansas City and just took off running. What? Kansas City already had a winning formula. What I mean by a winning formula, there's already a template of success there. The Steelers organization, the Packers organization, the Vikings, the 49ers, even you could say the Cardinals, you could say Tampa Bay, you could say every franchise has a winning recipe in this league with the exception of the Lions. There's a reason for that. It's quantity over quality. The Steelers will always continue to win regardless of who they get as a head coach because they have a winning recipe. That started back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. They have a winning recipe. The Lions had a winning recipe back in the 40s to 50s, but they tore all that down. They went a totally different direction. They went for, we can make money off of this versus doing both. But if you're going to make money off of it, it's going to cost you to get the very best. It's going to cost you that. If you're going to sustain over a period of time to make more money, it's going to cost you talent. Case in point, in our modern day, the best player we didn't had in the last, I want to say last 10, maybe 20 years, the best player we have had, in my opinion, is Ndamukong Suh. Over Calvin Johnson, over Matthew Stafford, and over all the other picks that they have had in the last 20 years. Let's go back since Barry Sanders. The best player that they have had in this franchise was Ndamukong Suh. He was a culture changer, but they went against that because you had to invest money into it. He was actually the reason why they won 11. The reason why they went 11-5 was because of him. The reason why the franchise turned around up under Jim Schwartz and Jim Caldwell was because of Ndamukong Suh. If you notice, the moment that he left, it started to dwindle. You could say it's coaching changes. You could say it's this. No, he was the most impactful player. Take Barry Sanders off that team, and where does the team go? It goes down. You only goes as good as your strength. But with your strength, that's the quality. You have to pay it. You have to maintain that quality. And not pay it with money, but you have to maintain its happiness. They weren't willing to do that with Suh. Suh left. I get that. Do you mean to tell me that he would have still went to Miami, or if the Lions was willing to take care of him like they should have took care of him? It's not just with money. The Lions are not winning. They haven't really won without Sue. Somebody said, yes, they did with Cardwell. They went 9-7 and so forth. They was 11-5 with Sue. 9-7 without him. Come on. Somebody said this is like a couple games. Like, it's not a couple games. It's the impact of the games. How they won with him. But yet and still, they chose Matthew Stafford over Sue. In other words, they chose to do what? Keep feeding the offense over feeding Sue. All you have to do is keep building off of Sue. That would have made Sue your face of your franchise. But they didn't do that. They went the other way. They made Matthew Stafford the face of their franchise. And have you noticed, they've been losing ever since they made that decision. And they don't just lose. Somebody may say, well, Matthew Stafford to keep them competitive. I disagree. He does not. To keep this team competitive is that you can hit your receiver in stride, where the receiver doesn't have to make, where you don't put the receiver in a position to get hurt. Or the quarterback don't put himself in a position to keep being hurt. Somebody said, like, well, why do you want to let Stafford go? I want to let him go because of this reason. 44-90. So somebody said, well, that's not solely his responsibility. That's not solely, you can't really solely blame that on him. And you're right. I'm not totally blaming that on him, but I'm saying that is above his head. So long as that is above him, he's a loser. He's not a winner. He's a loser. Not him as a person, but as a player in his franchise, that's attached to him. If they tried to wipe away everything that was went away from Cardwell, they got to wipe away Matthew Stafford. But Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia wasn't allowed to. If you, it's the same thing with this, where they are now. If they're not allowed to move on from Matthew Stafford, they will remain losers unless it's going to be rigged. All right, so somebody say, well, it'll cost you $19 million to let him go. Even if you trade him, you got something back. Say like if there was a king ransom on the table. Let's say like if there was a Herschel Walker deal on the table for the Lions, which was sort of kind of the deal last year when Miami was willing to offer up 2 first-round draft picks. They didn't, no discussion. They didn't want to talk about it. Why? That's a king's ransom for him. He was 32 years old or 33, however you want to do it. And he has at the time, it wasn't 44 wins. It was less than 44 wins, and it was less than 90 losses. Yet and still, he was up there. It wasn't he wasn't an average considered in a win-loss column. He wasn't average, and he definitely wasn't above average. So why are you keeping him? Because he put people in the seats? Does Matthew Stafford put more people in the seats than Ndamukong Suh, than Calvin Johnson? No, he does not. So why are you keeping him here? He's the best quarterback they had in 50 years? Whose fault is that? And if he's the best, by what margin is he the best? So somebody say, okay, they got the King's ransom set up in the draft. So there's a team that's willing to unload, I say, like, for example, Miami comes knocking at the door again. We give you 2 first-round picks, and you give me Matthew Stafford and your second. Matthew Stafford, your second, and the next year's second. Okay, so you're getting 2 Matthew Stafford, 2 number 2s for exchange for 2 number 1s. All right, I'll do the deal. Of course, somebody will say, like, well, why? But because you're taking a $19 million out of cap hit. I'm like, well, look at it this way. Matthew Stafford is on course for this coming year to make $33 million for this upcoming season. For what? What did he do that was worth $33 million? Some people say, like, well, he's a good quarterback. You're going to realize how this team is really bad without him. But this team is bad with him. What is your point? They're not even competitive with him. Now, he throws some numbers and this, and this. I get that. But it's a losing formula. Just as well as they harped on Matt Patricia as a losing formula because he alienated the locker room. Matthew Stafford does the same thing. He just doesn't do it vocally. In other words, he put his receivers in position to be hurt because he plays hurt, not just injuries physically. In his head, he plays hurt. he plays scared. Now, don't get me wrong. He's one of those guys that you knock him down, he gets back up, and that's applaudable. But he's not smart. He doesn't figure it out. And what I mean by that is, if you're at the age that you are, and instead of sliding, you're trying to run through a linebacker you're losing in the game or you're having a losing record that year, and you're doing it for what reason? What? To say that you did it? To say I'm a competitor? My greatest strength is to compete? That tells me you haven't figured it out in 13 years. It doesn't matter what ex-player or what ex-coach said that he's a good guy. You know, he deserves to win. He deserves to win for an organization that actually cares about him. They don't care about him because if they cared about him, why is he playing the last remaining couple games of the season when it doesn't matter? And when his body is showing it repeatedly year after year after year, he's entered the season off injuries. Why are you throwing him out there? If they cared about him, they wouldn't let him go out there because he would be their prize pupil. He'd be their asset, but he's not. And you guys want me to be content with a guy that plays reckless, that doesn't figure it out. Now, this is the reason why I applaud Tom Brady and Joe Montana, because they figure it out. Joe Montana wasn't a highly, draft pick, and everything else it was not. Same thing goes for Tom Brady. But what makes both of them so good because they both can figure it out. In their head, they figure it out. Stafford is a guy who hasn't figured it out in 13 years. It's almost like he can't because how this organization is ran. So it's like it's destined to fail. If you give Stafford a run game, they gave him a run game, but they still won't stick to it. Why? That's coaching. No, that's management. That's ownership. That's ownership. That's not coaching. That's ownership. Because if the ownership really cared about Stafford, they would put Stafford in the best position to win. If it's successful of running the ball, why don't you stick to running the ball? That's coaching. No, that's not coaching. That's ownership. The ownership is saying, I'm keeping him here. And I'm telling y'all, if y'all want to have this job, y'all going to have to keep Matthew Stafford. Then he's my prized possession. So as an owner, I'm telling y'all got to do whatever it takes to protect my investment. This is my guy. Y'all got to protect him. Well, then how come they're not doing it? Maybe that what got Matt Patricia and fired because they won't protect him. I don't know. Maybe they got Jim Caldwell fired because he didn't want to protect him. I don't know. That's behind the scene. Any which way it goes, if the ownership is saying, I'm going to leave it up to the general manager to make that decision, it's still the ownership not taking ownership. They kicking the can up the street, or they placing a responsibility on somebody else. It's either you're going to own up to Matthew Stafford for all these years that you have invested in him and he's been your number one piece, and you're going to finally back it up to say like that was our guy, or you're basically throwing him up under the bus, which they have been doing. Any which way it go, it's destined to fail. Somebody say like, well, Matthew Stafford give you the best possible way to win, but he has shown you the best possible way to lose. He regressed this past season. He regressed. Now he got his tight end, he got his run game. But why is he not hitting his targets? And what I mean by that, why is he not? They're talking about this receiver drops the ball, but that's on the receiver. That's on the receiver responsibility for not dropping the ball. I give you that. But when you have the opportunity to throw a receiver in stride and you don't, when you have an opportunity to make the plays, to make the players want to catch everything that you want to do, they don't. Why are you throwing the ball hard when you can throw it soft? And why are you throwing the ball soft when you can throw it hard? Why are you not throwing the ball out of bounds instead of taking a sack? Why instead of holding on to the ball to eventually get the sack? These are things that he can control. He may not control the hands of a receiver, but you control how that ball comes out. You control how the ball is delivered. You can control that. That's what he can control. And he can be culture shock based on all the hits. And that's, once again, it goes back to ownership. If he's your guy, your asset, then you're protecting him at all costs. What? Okay. What did Jerry Jones don't know nothing about football? He just doesn't. He knows about making money. I give you that, but he does. No. Jimmy Johnson does. And what have they done without him? Go ahead and say they won in '95 without him, because they didn't. Deion Sanders got them that title. Why? Because they was able to knock off the 49ers. Deion Sanders got him that title. So, but anyway, I bring up the Jerry Jones situation because what he did was he blueprinted off what Jimmy Johnson did. The Lions have a blueprint of winning in the 50s and whatever, and they still won't do it that way. They still won't do it that way because it's based upon ownership. So now you have a new general manager, a new head coach, and it's supposed to be like new life and new blood and all that good stuff. And I get that. And you're going to bring in another culture. So another template of another culture. We're going to do it like the Rams did it. Before, you did how New England did it. Before that, you did how the 49ers did it. Before that, you did how Philadelphia did it. You did it how, no, not Philadelphia. You did it how Baltimore did it, or Tony Dungy did it. You keep kicking this can up the street. And the one time you was doing it the Lions way, which was, I would say, back when it was in '91, the one time you was doing it, it became an identity, the Lions way. You tore it down because it was time to pay the players to keep them here, and you didn't want to pay them, so that fell all apart. Then they started losing all the way up to, let's say, Jim Schwartz. Let's say Mayhew, Jim Schwartz. They started losing all the way up to that point because Millen took over, and oh man, so all the way up to Mayhew when Matthew Stafford was drafted, when Ndamukong Suh was drafted. Not when Calvin Johnson was drafted, because he was drafted upon a Millen. When Ndamukong Suh was drafted, they started winning. Why? Because he was a special talent. It's not just special in talent. He was special in ability. He brought, how can I say it? What Barry Sanders was able to bring to the offense is what Ndamukong Suh was able to bring to the defense. That's one guy that basically could put the team on his back, and they did. And they went as far as he went. But when he checked out, he was gone. The team fell apart. They tried to replace it with Elodi Ngata, but Elodi Ngata is not Ndamukong Suh. Elodi Ngata cannot carry the team like a Ray Lewis can. Ndamukong Suh was the closest thing that they had to Ray Lewis-esque. Not mainly play, but his ability to carry a team. Is Barry Sanders, Ndamukong Suh. It's not Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. It's Barry Sanders, Ndamukong Suh. And when they let Ndamukong Suh let him go, they never replaced that type of whatever, because nothing is coming out of the draft that is equivalent to that can carry a team. But they keep putting on Stafford as like he's the savior of the team. So okay, all right, let's play that card. The team goes as Matthew Stafford goes, but how far did it go? The fan is saying, like, I don't want to lose him because it's a $19 million cap hit. But if you keep him, it's a $30 million on the books. For what? That he's going to end up hurt? That he doesn't make his receiver better? Yes, he does. The numbers are like, no. The receivers made him better. He does not throw the receiver in stride. He does not make accurate passes. He does not make the team better in terms of throwing the ball out of bounds. I mean, it's thinking in his head. It's thinking. The game is going too fast for him. In 13 years, he's not throwing what he can control. He doesn't control. And people saying like, well, it's Patricia's fault because of this. What he can control, he doesn't control. But he got 14 comebacks. Well, Patricia got 14 games that they was leading going to the fourth quarter. What's the point? Somebody say, well, you got 14 comebacks. What are you doing in the rest of the game? So when it's time to hit the switch, you turn it on. Don't get me wrong. When Matthew Stafford is dialed in, he's a top 5 quarterback. When he's not, he's a bottom 5 top quarterback. Simple as that. So you don't know what you're going to get from him. Why is that considered a valuable asset to this organization? I don't understand why. Miami was offering you 2 first-round draft picks. There's your last year. There's your, if you want to go, there's your 3 first-round draft picks. You can go Jeff Okudah. You can go Isaiah Simmons. You can go Mekhi Beckham. You can go a lineman. You can go a quarterback. You can go any which way to go. You could, man. And you didn't want to let him go. Regardless of the cap hit, you didn't want to let him go. Matthew Stafford's worth having. I 44 and 90. When I saw that stat line, you can't have that a part of your. That's the reason why you're losing, because that is acceptable. I can't pin it all on my quarterback, but look at Ndamukong Suh stat line when he was here compared to Matthew Stafford. Well, you can't say that because Ndamukong Suh doesn't have the ball in his hand. He doesn't have no. The team went as he went. Defensively, the team went as he went. 11-5, 9-7, whatever. Stop there. Because I believe they went the last 2 years of they went. Wait. I don't know if he was here. I don't know if he was here for Caldwell for 2 years or 1 year. I believe it was 1 year he was with him. But anyway, you saw the difference when Ndamukong Suh left. You saw the difference in, and people say that Glover Quinn was good, and he Matt Patricia alienated him. And then they say Darius Slay was good, so Matt Patricia alienated him. They could say Quandre Diggs was good, he alienated him. Golden Tate was good. All right, Golden Tate is a different deal. Golden Tate made Matthew Stafford better. Matthew Stafford didn't make Golden Tate better. Let's get that straight. He did not. I don't know one receiver that Matthew Stafford has made better. Because Matthew Stafford doesn't, once again, he's not an accurate quarterback. He doesn't make the right play at the right time. He put his receiver in position to get hurt quite often because he's in his head, don't want to take the hit. Once again, it goes back to the ownership. But Ndamukong Suh, when he got here, the team actually went higher because of his impactful play. Why he wasn't the key for to franchise, not franchise as in franchise tag, but to invest in. But why? Because he's a bad boy image, but his team needed a culture shock. His team needed to get out of the placement of apathy. They needed to get out of that culture of misery, that practice apathy. Once again, it's quality over quantity. But the fan base won't hold this force to that standard because they don't have to. Long as the forward dangles the bait that if you grab this carrot or you reach for this carrot and you're content with reaching at it but never getting it, they're good. You could change up all you want. You could change up until they do a bold move like let go of Stafford. Let's say Miami comes calling and they want to cut ties with, I don't know if they would do it though. But this hypothetical, or being hypothetically saying, let's say we want to offer you 2 first rounds for Matthew Stafford and Matthew Stafford and 2 number 2s. You take it. Take it. Take it. Well, no, let me change that up. Not 2 number 2s. Just say Matthew Stafford and a number 2 for 2 first round picks. You take it. Somebody said the numbers don't make sense. You don't get any better. Yes, it does. I mean, it's equivalent to losing Grant Hill. When the Pistons lost Grant Hill the way that they got something back in return. Now, did anybody see Ben Wallace coming out of that? The way Ben Wallace turned out? No. But that's the whole point of you getting the general manager that you brought in, right? He could find diamond in the rough. He's that guy for that, right? So then let him give him all the utility, all the ammunition, let's say that way. Give him all the ammunition to do his job the very best. And Dan Campbell's job is what? Getting everybody to play at their highest level, making them competitive. All right, but then Get them in as much as assets that you can. The players on this team is not going to play any better if they don't see the investment in the asset they're bringing in here. If they keep bringing in guys off the street, right? So like if you have a guy in Trey Flowers who's on the cusp of becoming an elite player, right? I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying hypothetically, this is the example that I'm giving. He's on the cusp of, but if you keep bringing in guys off the street, when you can go get the guy that will show the franchise that you want to win, such as what Troy Weaver did with the Pistons, right? Troy Weaver did what? He had players such as Bruce Browns and Kyrie Thomas and those guys that they brought in, those second round pick players that they're considered, the future, so to speak. And he said, well, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to turn that into something to get this team pumping. So he turned that and got a couple more first rounds, that and a few players, got rid of the Snails and a few other players, didn't sign back Christian Woods. Now, all the stuff that they're doing, when the fans were looking at the Pistons do this, they was like, what is he doing? Whatever. But all right, when the first round he drafted Killian Hayes. The fans was okay with that because they liked the guy. All right, whatever. I didn't care for the pick, but I'm gonna roll with it. You brought him in here. I'm gonna go by your, whatever. I'm gonna support you. Second pick, they go after. They make another move somehow, and they get another first round pick. Bold move, and he gets you Isaiah Stewart. Fans was like, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? You could have got a scoring player. All right, they were saying it. Why did you pick this guy? It don't make any sense. And then get another first round pick, and he's able to get you Saddiq Bey. Now all of a sudden, they seeing how it works out. Killian Hayes, which is a guy I didn't want, he's on a wrap. He's sitting down. He's whatever. He's not playing. But then you have the opportunity to get Isaiah Stewart, Saddiq Bey, and you seeing them how they play. You're looking at them how they play. Oh, we understand now. So I'm saying the same thing with if Brad Holmes is allowed to do his job, he could do the same thing with the Lions. They're going to have to bring some life into this team, even if it is by addition with subtraction of a Matthew Stafford. Let it go. Let it go. Move on. Move on. I don't believe there's no team in their right mind that will honestly give you a king's ransom for Stafford, or even something that's blowing you out the water like Miami was willing to do last year. I don't see no team willing to do it. But if there is a team, take it and take the $19 million cap hit. But it doesn't make this franchise any better by keeping him when you have the opportunity to go forward. And I believe that stop. Well, let's say hypothetically, Bob Quinn and Patricia hands was tied, and people say, well, Bob Patricia alienated the locker room. And I want to say that, if I go here for a second, that's a plus minus type deal. Some people say well, it's a minus because of the fact he alienated the best players. Okay, you have Golden Tate, but wait, I don't know if Golden Tate was here. I'm not sure. You had let's say you have Slay, you have Quinn, and Diggs. Those are your three best players, right? What have they done without Sue? Pro Bowl? But Slay play has fallen off. Even before Patricia was getting here, his play was falling off. Quinn was falling off. Diggs was okay. However, when Sue was here, they elite. Because you got that D-line dominance. They could do their job, right? So they could play at 100%. So if you don't, going back to the Trey Flower example, I'm going to leave that one alone. Patricia and Quinn couldn't succeed because they couldn't go forward. As long as you're holding something of the past, you can't go forward. They, out of 44 and 90, the only one they still have here left here is what? Muhlbach and Matthew Stafford. Out of that, Matthew Stafford's stat, everybody else is gone. if I were to go to the Trey Flower example, Trey Flower, it could be on the cusp of going to the next stage of being elite, but they won't give him any help. Somebody said, well, Matt Patricia was they brought in his guys. He got him his Jamie Collins, he got him his Danny Sheltons, and he did it this way. Let's say Chris Jones was on the market, and the Lions organization like, no, we're not going to put that kind of money into that. But you got Danny Shelton. All right, okay. Players play better when they have when they see the vision, when they see it's not fake. Sue saw that it was fake, and he left. He checked out. So in other words, Sue's saying like, you're gonna have to pay me extra to deal with this false reality. Somebody say, how so? Well, look at what they did with Calvin Johnson, over $1 million. They didn't care about Calvin Johnson, because if they did, Matthew Stafford wouldn't be able to do him the way he did it, and they wouldn't even do Matthew Stafford the way they did it. If you're going to make Calvin Johnson better because you cared about Calvin Johnson, you will put Calvin Johnson in a position to win based upon your quarterback being in a position to win. How did the 49ers do well with you got two franchises? You got Randy Moss when he go to New England, and you got Jerry Rice when he was with 49ers. Why did Jerry Rice look so good? Because they always put him in position to succeed. Always put him in position to succeed. You got on the other side, you got John Taylor that they drafted and evolved into that. I believe when John Taylor got there, he was considered as a kick returner specialist, and he was a receiver nonetheless, but he was a kick returner, and he developed into his craft, whatever. But on the other side, you develop into a Brent Jones. But they gave Jerry Rice all the pieces that he needed. Help me, sir. And they haven't did that with Stafford yet. He had Calvin Johnson. He had Reggie Bush, but he still didn't have an offensive line. When they could have the shot to go get the best offensive lineman, and they didn't do it. They're going after Nick Fairley. They do it wrong because nobody is held accountable. With that being said, as long as they have that as a recipe, they won't win. All right, Lions fans, I salute.